What's up, guys? Got a new episode on our Walking Through the Woods. And I've been thinking about something. The concept is warring in the opposite spirit. So, first of all, before I dive into that, I just wanted to say that I've been thinking about the content on this channel and what I'm really moving toward, and I've been getting into a lot of like Seth Godin and like marketing and leadership kind of stuff, and thinking about what is the tribe I'm building, what is it I'm working toward here, and really who I think I am the most reaching out toward right now are those who, like myself, have had to rethink things, have had to look at their life and look at what's going on and sort of decide where they want to go from where they are now. Basically, for those of you who are like me that have had to reinvent yourselves, or you're in that process right now, you're trying to figure out, how do I create and structure this life to be balanced and to be satisfying, to be what I need it to be. Taking care of the things that are important to me and enjoying it. And looking out for the long term while still actually being able to be in the moment. If that's you, if that sounds like you, then welcome. So anyway, into the subject matter of the day. As I've been thinking about this issue of say spiritual warfare, like we're dealing with, you can get abstract with that. You could get into obviously like spiritual beings and whatnot, but you can also get into it from a level of ideas and feelings and how we're affected. And if you think about say fear or I'm going blank here on it, but basically, things that are not what you want in your life. They're the opposite of the kind of values that you want to have in your life. Anxiety, frustration, anger, things like that. It's like a lot of times we have these things happen, we have these things kind of carry us away, kind of just consume our life. And, we don't want it. Addiction, repeat cycles. A little bit of some of these things like fear or whatever isn't necessarily just evil, isn't necessarily a wrong thing in and of itself, but you definitely don't want to be ruled by fear. You definitely don't want to just be filled with anxiety all the time. A lot of times it's like what makes these things demons is that they're way out of balance. There's way too much of it and it's just dictating your entire life. And so we want to not be controlled by those things. We want to not be controlled by our vices. That's in the Bible, there's the book of Galatians that talks about the works of the flesh, and basically the works of the flesh are just vices. They're just ways of operating, ways of doing things in our life that are not healthy. That they don't give us real meaning. They don't give us real satisfaction. They don't draw us closer to the highest possible goals, the highest possible things that our lives really should be all about. God, family, relationships. What's of the highest worth? What's of the greatest worth? The works of the flesh, they keep you away from that. Vices keep you away from that. They undermine, they sabotage, they destroy the relationships that really matter to you. They mess with your real goals, what you want for your life. And if you kind of do the math, you kind of connect the dots, those works of the flesh, those vices, those things that get us sabotaged, they are connected to sort of malevolent entities. They are connected to, if for no other reason than because there's an idea there that tries to take possession of you. There's a feeling that tries to take possession of you. And it wants to become, from a Jungian sort of perspective, Carl Jung, his thinking, it's like a micro-personality that isn't willing to accept that it's just supposed to be one of the voices at the council table. It wants to take full control. It wants to be the personality that's dictating everything. And when that happens, like when you become angry and you allow anger to take full control of you, that's what basically just happened, right? Like you just became possessed with anger, became possessed by anger. So when we have these vices, when we have the works of the flesh that ensnare us, the habits, the tendencies, the things that keep us from what would really be the best in our life, what God's best is for our life, we have to fight that. We have to find a way, we have to battle our way through it. And one of the means of fighting back against that, against these influences, against the feelings and the thoughts and what they're all oriented in, the idea of the force that's animating them, the force behind them, is to walk in the opposite spirit. So what that looks like, for example, like let's say the idea is it's never enough. I have to accomplish more. I have to do more. I don't feel accomplished with what I've done so far. When that grips us, when we're living a life that our personal worth is based on our accomplishments and based on the things that we do, what it looks like to walk on the opposite spirit is, instead of being a workaholic, instead of just trying to force more productivity out of ourselves, trying to do more than what we've done already, it's to make ourselves stop. It's to sit down and do journaling. Be able to give ourselves an hour for that. Give ourselves an hour to be still. Meditate. And that is the hardest thing in the world to do when you're a mover and a shaker, when you love accomplishment, when you're really, caught up in that mindset. It's very difficult to let go of that desire to do more. And that's a very strong, our society is all about accomplishment. Our society is all about how accomplished someone is. And so we have there's a sort of a natural addictiveness to accomplishment. And then B, we've got our whole society, we've got our whole culture that says that's the most important thing you could be doing. Is, again, doing. Doing is the most important thing you could be doing. And the reality is, life is not about accomplishment. It's about relationship. It's about values that are higher than simply what we've done in this world. And what we really walk away with is the quality of the relationship that we had with God, the relationship that we had with our significant other, with friends, with family. It's the impact that we made on people. That's what we leave, is how our lives and theirs were interconnected. How we touched them, how we made them feel. And the story that we tell, the story that we build together, is the story of relationship, is the story of how our relationships worked. So, getting a little bit lost from the meta lesson here, but the case in point is when we're dealing with that issue of getting lost in say, a cultural value like accomplishment, and we know that I need to rest. I need to learn to rest. I need to learn to love something more than just how much am I accomplishing? How much am I doing? And am I doing enough? Finding ourselves in a place of rest. Well, we're not going to just find ourselves there. We're going to have to get ourselves there. And we're going to have to do it by warring in the opposite spirit. We're going to have to do it by refusing to be sucked up into that same ideology, that same, everything's works, everything's performance, everything's accomplishment. So I realized this today when I was out journaling with Brandy. We were sitting out on the table that we have out in the back porch. We have the chickens all running around outside free ranging. Got 3 of the outdoor kitties that all came to sit on the table and keep us company. And we had our journals out and we were just taking the time, even though before that our thoughts were on accomplishment or just on distracting ourselves, maybe having a little fun. But we set the time aside and said, you know what, we need to do this. We need to journal. We need to sit with God. We need to do this time of meditation and just choose to connect and choose to be still. And it wasn't easy because anything else, it's like sometimes the idea of sitting and journaling, the idea of meditation, being still, it makes you feel scared and vulnerable because it's like the things that you're really not wanting to think about, that you're wanting to avoid. You're worried, you're concerned. There are deeper underlying things. Sometimes there's fear that's behind why you want to accomplish things so bad, why you want to do things. And so when you know that maybe your meter's run out and you don't have any energy for that, you go to something else that maybe is a better distraction, that maybe will work to help you at least not feel the fear, not feel the anxiety that's under the surface. But the being still and the sitting with God can feel like you're just going to be faced with what's really there. And so it can be, tempting to like, hey, let's play a video game or let's watch a show or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with those things. There's nothing wrong with having fun. There's nothing wrong with having the time to relax, to play. But we have to be aware, life's about balance, man. And we've got to be aware, are we using those things as an escape? Are we using it as a means of not doing the relationship part, not doing the part of just taking care of our own mental and spiritual health and taking care of our relationship with God? And the reality is, if we will push through that discomfort, if we'll get past that and choose to go ahead and spend that time with Him, choose that time to sit in the silence, sit in the quiet, like every time, it reorients you, it balances you, it gets you back where you need to be. And, it's you feel the resistance, and that's not a bad thing. Not really, because it means that you're pushing up against something. It means you're pushing back into where you need to be. And there's always a battle. There's always a fight for something that's worthwhile. There's always something that has to be overcome. And so by choosing, and it doesn't always feel comfortable, for sure, it does not feel comfortable. Like when you're going against something that has sort of possessed you, you are getting out of alignment, you are moving toward, say, like in the example I was giving, you're getting too much stuck on performance, you're getting too much stuck on accomplishment. What you want to do is more accomplishing. What you feel comfortable with is pushing into more and more work. So getting out of that comfort zone, getting past that, and choosing what you really should be doing, what you really need to be doing right now, what's really going to yield the best for you, it's going to take that push. It's going to take that effort. But it's okay, because by the act of doing it, you're warring in the opposite spirit. My choosing to go against that just either rushing into more accomplishment or trying to find an escape to not feel my anxiety about the fact that I want to accomplish more. And, maybe there's an underlying fear that I'm not accomplishing enough. By facing that and by taking the time to rest and do the journaling, even though it's not easy, even though it's not the immediate thing that I just, on the surface want to do, but in my heart, in the depths of who I am, my real core values, what it really matters to me, yeah, I want to do that. Yeah, I want to spend time with God. Yeah, I want to be in the quiet. I want to balance life. I want rest. I don't want to just be driving forward all the time. I want to be able to sit still every now and then, and not just have to constantly be rushing and moving through life and never observing and never paying attention. But that deeper value and that deeper thing, I have to get back to it. I have to get back to it. And that's even when there's resistance, when it doesn't feel familiar anymore because you've gotten out of the habit. So that's the example that I'm giving right now. It's the best example I can think of, because it's like my immediate situation, what I've just immediately dealt with. But I would say that you can apply that same principle in many different ways, to many different vices and issues. Like, for instance, if a person is getting out of control with substances, maybe it's not necessarily like alcohol or drugs, maybe it's sugar, maybe it's food, maybe it's gaming, doing too much of it. If the problem is like some form of gluttony, then the warring in the opposite spirit, what takes you out of being possessed by that, is to choose instead to refrain from eating. Choose to instead refrain from playing the video game. Step back and don't be controlled by that base desire that you just have to do more of that thing. You have to have more of that thing. The very act of letting that thing go and choosing to do something else, choosing to fill your time, your attention, your focus with something else, it sets you free from the control of that. Inevitably, we get out of balance. We fall into unhealthy relationships with things. We fall into addiction. We can definitely be addicted to accomplishment, I'll tell you that. That's, being a workaholic. So, yeah, that's the thing I've been thinking about, and I wanted to share that with you and hope that helps you in some way, because it's a battle, that we all face, and it can be very serious things. For some people, it's watching things they shouldn't watch online. But no matter what the struggle, what the thing is, there is a way to beat it. There's a way to fight it, and it's not always just with this head against head, punch your way through willpower kind of thing. Sometimes it's choosing to do something strategic, something that is it's the opposite of that. Like, one of the things, for another example, similar concept, when you feel overwhelmed with like sadness, and depression, being stuck inside your own, like how miserable my life is, how miserable I feel right now. Maybe, it's a chronic pain, some kind of condition like that. If you're too caught up in your own misery, if you're too caught up in how you're feeling, you can just go deeper and deeper down that dark hole. But to war in the opposite spirit, you step outside of that, and instead of making it all about you, you say, how can I serve someone else? How can I lift someone else up? Look to someone else and say, how are you feeling? What's going on in your life? Find a way to be of service. Find a way to connect to another human being, not to make yourself feel better, but to do good for them. Really, genuinely take your mind off yourself and think about others. That sets you free from the misery that comes from over self-focus, being consumed with thoughts of your own self and with your own feelings. So, again, it's balance, and that's what warring in the opposite spirit does. It helps you regain balance. It helps you come out of under the control of the things that are trying to consume your life, trying to trap you and sabotage you. So that's it for now, and hope this was helpful. Hope this speaks to someone. Peace out. Oh, and we have a new motto: wisdom first, always.